Hi everyone, Raphael Harry here, and you're listening to White Label American, a podcast where we hear stories from an immigrant or two, sometimes more. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of White Label American. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we begin, I would like to remind you all that we love feedback and always feel free to send your feedback via our links on whitelabelamerican.com, www.whitelabelamerican.com. The links will be in the show notes. And when you hit the links, there's a little microphone icon. Hit that icon if you want to leave an audio message. It's 2 minutes. I don't want you to go over 2 minutes. I know a lot of you have a lot to say, so 2 minutes. I cut it off at 2 minutes. So 2 minutes. You can leave more than one message too. So yeah, we love feedback and say something nice. And if you don't have something nice to say, well, I'll still listen. But if it's not productive, well, you know where it goes. So yes, feedback is welcome. If you want to buy merch, we know where to go to, and we welcome donations and support from. You can join our Patreon, and as low as $3 you can support us. You can give dollars, euros. If you want to give crypto, as usual, we negotiate on that. If you want to give naira, we negotiate on that too. I love your money, but not all money is welcome right now. Alrighty. So with that being said, what am I? Oh yes, I remember what I was forgetting. I almost forgot this. So we're in election season. For my Nigerian listeners, we are in the general election is coming up next year, February. Kenya just had its general election. Angola just had its general election. United States, we are having our elections in November, mostly legislative, but we also have state elections too. All over the world, you guys who are old-time listeners, you know how I'm big on voting. You know how I'm big when it comes to our voting rights. And that's why I'm honored to have today's guests. 11th October 2020. I was listening to the best podcast in the world, The Black Guy Who Tips, when I heard of these two wonderful women. And I was like, wow, I got to write their names down, and I just got to stay in touch with them. So back then, I only knew of the two women who you'll be meeting today as having a multi-award-winning blog. And then from there, they now developed into a podcast, and now they are going into their second season. And I've learned a lot from these two wonderful women, and I've just been my knowledge has been expanding, and I'm so honored to have Adrianne George and Angela Fobbs here today. So welcome to the show. I'm so honored to have the both of you. How you all doing today?
Oh, well, thank you so much. We're so glad to be here. And I am not surprised that you heard us on The Black Guy Who Tips, but I'm surprised that you contacted us. It's really great. Thanks.
Well,
Hey, yeah, thanks. I was gonna say when he contacted me, I was like, Angela, we do at least have one listener. Someone's listening. But but we, like you, are big fans of The Black Guy Who Tips. I have to give Angela, she's the one who turned me on to it. Because when we started doing, as you say, we were doing Get Out the Vote work with Democrats abroad for the Global Black Caucus that Angela set up and was leading at the time. And she was like, Adrianne, I want you to do the Get Out the Vote work. And we said, okay, what podcasts are good? And The Black Guy Who Tips is at the top of her list. So we're lucky that you listened that day, because here we are.
oh yes. The funny thing is that The Black Guy Who Tips, I started listening because of Game of Thrones. It was I saw a report on Vice News when they used to be on HBO, and they were like, oh, there's a black couple that talks about Game of Thrones in a very black way, and I was like, all my stuff that covers nerddom, because I'm a big nerd. I was like, I didn't realize that I never had any black people when it came to anything that was about stuff that I was really into. So I think I was like, that was the first time I was like, okay, let me just listen to them. And back then, the person who I was like, oh, if you just said something that I disagreed with or was different from what I was expecting, I just wanted to fight with you. So if you my first few letters I was sending to them was like disagree, disagree, disagree. And then I said like, they do make a lot of sense though. But why am I just here to fight? Why can't I just enjoy what they're saying? And that's how I started changing. And a lot of the changes in my life started just because I was listening to that podcast, and I was like, wait, they do more than just talk about Game of Thrones. They talk about a whole lot of things that I like and I listen to and I enjoy, and and the politics was just, I was like, oh man, I'm here, keep me for life, keep me, and
Wow.
that's why I always refer to it as the best podcast in the world. And through the Black Guy Who Tips, I've gotten to know a whole bunch of other fantastic podcasters that have expanded my knowledge, and I include you guys too. So yes, that's why I'll always give a shout out to Rod and Karen. So with that being said, let's start with both of you. I always like to begin with my guests' names. So let's go to the very beginning. Is there a story as to why you have your names, and what are the meaning of your names?
Angela, I'll go first because I feel like I'm going to be brief because I know I appreciate when you sent me this. This threw me for a loop, and this is maybe something I'm going to have to work on. I didn't take the time to see. Some people know what their name means or whatever. I know I wanted to be spontaneous and tell you the first thing that came to my mind. I know on my birth certificate originally, it's spelled like the masculine version because that's the way my mother she spelled it the masculine version, one N. And then, I don't know, days
Ah,
later, she thought better of it. And her middle name she incorporated her middle name with my spelling. So somewhere out there, there's a male version of me. There's a birth certificate with a male version of me somewhere. And I really dig when I meet guys named Adrian. Um, I just love more so than when I meet a woman named Adrian. I love it. Um, because when you meet a woman named Adrian, they may have two E's. I only have one E. The Adrian, the guy always has the one A. And I remember when I moved to London, lived in England for the first time, there were people who swore my name wasn't Adrian because it was only a masculine name. They hadn't
hmm.
encountered anyone that with the feminized version. So that's my name story. Thanks for asking. I never thought about it.
That's why I love asking this question.
Well, okay. So my name is, I'm going to be a little bit more complicated about it. My name is Angela Gabrielle, and Angela is messenger. And I was named after the angel Gabriel because the day before I was born, my mother had a dream about the angel Gabriel, and she
Oh,
named me after the angel Gabriel. My last name actually is Native American,
oh,
and it means clever in Choctaw. In
oh.
Choctaw, so I have a little bit of and I am definitely the avenging angel. So
Oh,
my name fits me, or
okay.
I managed to fit my name. So
Hey, that's why this is one of my favorite questions to ask, because the answers are never the same. And I always learn stuff. I always learn stuff from the name questions. And yes, there's cultures that I get exposed to. And like Adrian, I don't think, I think this is the first time I just realized that Adrian is a unisex name. Well, I think only, personally, I think I may have only come in contact with male Adrians. So I don't think it registered with me that there are women named Adrian. And then I think
Yeah,
I think the first emails that I sent to you guys, I was spelling Adrian with an E, not A. And then I
yeah.
caught it later on. Yeah.
Yeah, and that used to bug me to no end when people I'm gonna say maybe that's my yoga's working. I didn't even notice that you did that. But thanks for picking it up. See, you're sensitive. You picked it up, and you made that adjustment. But kind of playing off of the name things, I love it when I meet a guy named like Kim or something, and or
Oh.
Marion or named Evelyn, names that that
Oh.
I normally associate with women. So that kind of, and then I've never seen that couple when they both have the same name. I'm waiting for that though. I'm waiting for that.
Oh, I have. I just
oh,
thought of one in Gem. They're actually in Gem. They're related to my wife's family, Peter and Petra. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is the same name.
That's sweet. I know. What are they going to name their kids? I've seen some families that do all that with the same first name, I mean, first letter or something, but yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
tell us about your name? See, now I have to know because
Oh, sure.
I feel like your name means
Sure.
something.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky as a kid. I got to. My elder sister had a book of names, so I got to steal the book. That's the cleaner version. I stole the book later on, and I think I was age 11, 10 or 11 when I kept the book for myself, and that's how I got to find out that my name Raphael, which became Raphael after I moved to the United States, was a Hebrew name meaning the healing of God. Because in Nigeria, I don't think anybody ever told me the meaning of my name until I saw that book. And then my last name, Harry, is a Celtic name, which is the same as Henry, which is a rich, powerful lord. And then my traditional name is Oin Laifa, which is nothing supersedes a greater being. But I think due to our being converted to Christianity, it became, you get a variation of nothing supersedes God. So it depends on who's telling you the meaning.
Okay, wow. No, like earlier, I've got some research to do. I don't know what my last name means or anything, my middle name, find out my married name, and hope I don't find anything bad.
Well, now I need to ask why I was given those names. That's the only thing I haven't asked. But I always get different stories on different days. So I'll find out one of these days. And hopefully I'll get one story that sticks. But it's always fun hearing from other people, and there's things that you learn because some people have, I've heard of stories like someone was someone told me recently their family they only had yes they only had girls. The parents only had girls, and there was pressure on the dad to take another wife because they needed a boy. The family needed a boy, and the mom was while the mom was pregnant, and the mom had another girl, and the name that she was given. That was the day she. When I asked her, that was the day she found out because her mom was there, and she asked her mom, and she got the true meaning of her name. That I think it's a blessed daughter or something like that, or blessed girl or something like that, and she thought it was something different in her language, but the meaning meant the supreme girl or something like that. And that's how she found out that the dad intentionally named her for that. That yeah, I'm still fine with this girl being the fourth girl in the family. Although they still later on had another kid, which turned out to be a boy, and then yeah, everybody calmed down, and I was like, oh, so that's
It
how it
sounds
goes.
like Downton Abbey and all of this. We have to have son.
Oh, there are lots of it cuts across different tribes back in Nigeria. Yeah, there's in my family we had stories like that. I know of aunts, and especially from the women. Yeah, they always had stories of yeah. It's like there's a timer. You've had the first kid, second kid, third kid. No boy has popped out. Yeah. So we know this other woman who we believe can bring a boy. It's like nobody ever talks about the man. The man's role. It's always yeah. So at the point in time, I was also growing up thinking that it's the women's fault, and then you find out later with science that it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, that's the funny part to me about all these historic things like, oh, I've got to get rid of this wife because she's just bringing me only daughters, and it's like, nope, you're doing that. So that's you.
Yeah. So coming back to both of you, can you introduce us to your place of birth and what was childhood like for you guys?
Oh.
Angela, you want to go first since I led off with the name?
Yeah, sure. Well, I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is I guess, a medium-sized city in Ohio, Southern Ohio. It's on the border of Kentucky. Um, I have no idea what my childhood was like. I think it was good. I mean, for the most part, there were a few things that maybe weren't so great, but I grew up I grew up in a house in a neighborhood on the west side of Cincinnati. Um, I my actually I lived with my mother and my grandmother and my grandfather until he died. Um, we had a lovely life. I mean, Cincinnati, where I'm from, for me, it's super boring. But other people like it. I mean, it's a great place to visit if you're just going to be there for a few days, but don't live there. And I know people from Cincinnati are probably listening to this saying, "Oh, she's crazy," but you know what I mean. Don't live there. It's a great place to visit, but not a great place to live. Um, I yeah, I went to university there. Um, I didn't go to University of Cincinnati. I went to Xavier, which is another university in the city. And then as soon as I possibly could, I left. So
Okay. All right. So we'll pause there. Adrian.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've been to Cincinnati, but I know I've been to Ohio because I'm from Washington, D.C., and I remember like Angela said, she thinks she has a good childhood. I think I had a good childhood. I know I had a good childhood. It's interesting again that you asked this because, there's such an American ideal of what a childhood is supposed to be. And, um, you don't want to start comparing yours to others and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But I grew up in a household with, my parents, they met in university at Howard University in Washington, D.C. So me and my sister are first generation Washingtonians. Because of that, my mom came from the Midwest, my father from the South. So they set their roots in Washington, D.C. And I grew up when D.C. was Chocolate City. It still upsets me now that we can't say that anymore, that it's not Chocolate City anymore. And by Chocolate City, I mean majority Black.
Yes.
And I say that proudly. Proudly, it totally made me who I was, who I am. I can't imagine not growing up in a city where the mayor, the robber, the doctor, the pimp, everybody looks like you. Everybody's in a community. There are white people there and there are other people there, but you are the majority. And that is just such a fantastic feeling so I have that. I have that as a basis for my childhood. I do not know what it's like to not be in the majority, to not be in a safe space. Safe as far as it's not unsafe for you because you don't fit in, because you look differently.
Mm.
My mother's from Chicago. There were parts of Chicago, you don't go in that part of town. You do not go in that part, you will not come out alive. So DC was not that space for me. I can't talk to DC now, but I grew up in DC when it was Chocolate City. It was a fantastic place to be, cultural hub, artistic hub, with a family who loved me. My sister asked for me, there's that sweet little story. She was 6. Mommy, how much do I cost? Mommy, why? Because can you buy me a little sister? So, I have that idealized, I can spin it. And, I've got that. My childhood is just as happy as Becky's over there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, and I am very grateful for having grown up in Chocolate City.
That's beautiful. So, with that being said, what do you guys consider your favorite childhood memory?
So
wow,
I'll go.
that is yeah,
Okay,
you
good.
go first
I
because
was gonna say I'll
I'm
go first because I
yeah.
pitched you first. Yeah, well, you know what? Okay, I can give you a favorite. I love how this is spontaneous too.
Yeah.
A favorite childhood memory, and I can remember. I guess I was 9. Yeah, and we drove to Los Angeles because my mom was teaching something at UCLA, and we went to Disneyland, and I was in those teacups with my sister, just laughing. I have never laughed so hysterically and genuinely. And I've never been to Disney. I don't know what they're doing in Florida. I've never been to that. But my original, the one in LA, you know, that is my favorite memory. Of being at Disneyland with my sister in the teacups in particular.
But my daughter
Wow.
just got teacups for her birthday day before
Do you know
yesterday.
that
So
ride? I don't even know if they have that, but you know that ride. You're like sitting in a teacup. It's like and that teacup spins around, and then it's on a bigger axis that's spinning around. So
mhm.
it's a lot of spinning around. Um, and it's probably too old fashioned to have now. But yeah, so that seems so pure and wholesome.
Yeah,
So you're making me smile on the inside today.
that's the plan, you know. So, Angela,
Oh yeah, I know. And I don't I it's not that I don't have any memories that are positive. I'm just not sure. I don't have necessarily have like a definitive moment, but I have to say some of my best childhood memories have to do with playing sports.
okay.
I really enjoyed as a child playing sports. And I was very good at it and very competitive. And so I would say that that's probably a good memory, just being, able just to run around and play ball and, have fun.
Was there a particular sport that was your favorite?
It depends on what age. When I was like, let's say under 12, I loved to play Foursquare. Do you know this game?
Foursquare.
Um,
I might know it
yeah,
by sight.
it's it's a game with a ball, and there's four squares that are drawn on the ground. And the idea, everybody stands in a square, and the idea is to hit the ball so the other person doesn't can't hit it back, gets out of the square. You have to stay in the square. You have to keep the ball in the square, and you have to stay in the square. It's
Hmm.
it's uh
That
it's
was giving me some Squid Game vibes right there.
Yeah, well, yeah, I loved Squid Game too, by the way. I like the idea of having to play little kids games for your life. That was awesome.
Oh, Squid Game. They've changed everything for me now. Yeah, but yeah, that's another favorite question of mine to ask. The favorite childhood memory, because you never know what comes up, and yeah, I've gotten everything that's. Um, yeah, I love seeing the looks on people's faces and hearing the answers, and just hearing the excitement in the voices. You know, when people talk about their childhood memories, so it's always beautiful. So you two now live outside of United States, but as kids, did you guys, what were, if I were to meet your, let's say, your teenage selves, what was your dream or like your profession? Yeah, what was the dream that your teenage selves had profession wise?
Oh,
Um,
good. That was easy for me. At 16, well,
Yeah,
you said teenage,
yeah,
so I get to pick. I get to pick between 13 and 18, right? I'm gonna pick like 16
okay.
because I graduated high school 17. I was gonna be a buyer at Macy's, and it was no Bloomingdale's. It
Oh,
was
okay.
gonna be it was gonna be Bloomingdale's or Macy's. I can't remember, but a buyer and because and a fashion buyer, I should say, because Bloomingdale's, Macy's, they got all kinds of departments, but a fashion buyer. And I remember putting that out there, and my sister subscribing to Vogue magazine and Women's Wear Daily for me, these industry rags. And I actually lived that life eventually, but not how I originally planned it. So, yeah, I had a dream. And I did make it come true, but not how I thought. But yeah.
well, okay. So when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a doctor. And someone had advised me that I should like volunteer at the hospital, one of the local hospitals. And so for, I don't know, I want to say from age 13 to around 17, I volunteered at the same hospital. I worked in every department,
Oh,
did
wow.
all sorts of jobs, from like the morgue to giving
The
birth.
mug.
Um, yeah,
Oh,
there's things to do.
I know, but for a teenager.
Yeah, I did all sorts of things in the hospital because I was deadly serious about being a doctor. And then at a certain point, I decided I don't like sick people, and I just wouldn't be able to you see a lot of things, and you see, I mean, from life to death,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people, you see a lot of older people in a hospital, and a lot of people just kind of leave their old parents to die. I mean, it's not
Mm.
what people really talk about, but
Yeah.
they do. They just leave them somewhere. No, they never visit. They never, send anything, or it's pretty sad. And I just decided that I couldn't do it, like psychologically, that I just wasn't cut out for it, that I could handle. I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't like like didn't like blood or squeamish or
Mm-hmm.
something like this. It's just I just couldn't deal with the psychological toll, and I thought it would only get worse, as the longer it went on. And look at what happened with COVID. That's got to have been a nightmare for hospital workers,
Oh yeah.
really.
Yeah. I have someone who she's a medical doctor in South Africa, and she actually quit early in the pandemic for some time and had to just take some time off and was thinking of a career change. And then, but she's back in the hospitals now. But she was
Mm-hmm.
at first she was like, nah, I don't think I can deal with this. And I was like, yeah, I don't blame you. There's no, you must be in the hospital. No, I was like, I can't imagine what it's like for you, because when I first arrived in America, that was one of the first things family were like, yeah, all the Nigerians and Ghanaians around here, they all work in hospitals, they're nurses, they got money, they got bought houses. So come on. After my 2 weeks break of welcome to America, yeah, now it's over. Come on, start hustling. I was like, well, I don't like going to hospitals. I don't, and I was also that man who doesn't go to the hospitals then. So I was like, yeah, I don't like the hospitals smell. So why am I going to work there? I don't want to work in a hospital. They're like, it's money. They're going to pay you money, good money. I was like, nah, I can't. Nah, I could. So that was
I mean,
just my own way, and I couldn't deal with it. But yeah, that was
yeah,
how I struggled, and that was my own psychological thing. That
it's hard.
yeah.
It's hard to work. I actually love hospitals. They are great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a hospital is a whole system
Yes.
of people doing all sorts of things. And it's really kind of interesting, but not everybody survives.
Mm-mm.
And there's not a cure for everything. And
Nope.
and at a certain point in people's lives, like you're just not going to make it. And I just wasn't sure that I could deal with that, because people die in hospitals a lot more than anybody ever, they don't really talk about it.
Ah, even back when I was in Nigeria, I had a cousin who he was much older, but he suffered from sickle cell, and there was a time he had one of his crises, and he had to be in hospital. He was admitted for a while, and I was a teenager then. I didn't understand why he wanted out of that ward. Almost everybody in the ward kept dying.
Oh
By
yeah, okay.
by
Yeah.
I think by 2 weeks to a month, there were only two people left. When he was admitted, I think there were like about 10 to between 10 and 12 people. And by the end of 2 weeks to a month, when he finally got discharged, there were only two people left who were still alive in the ward. And he said one person kept dying, almost every day somebody died, or every 2 days somebody died. And he was freaking out, like, I don't even care about the treatment anymore. I feel like I'm gonna die if I stay here. He was more worried about that. But for me as a teenager, then I'm like, why are you freaking out? The doctor's giving you treatment. That was my mindset then. But looking back now, I was like, yeah, I wouldn't want to stay there. I would have been like, move me to a different ward where nobody is dying, because you
I
know,
always kind of thought of hospitals are places where people go to die, or like if you're going to be there for I mean, you don't have morgues in schools. You don't have
hmm
morgues in. I mean, that's hospitals are pretty much the only. Well, I don't know. I guess they're county morgues somewhere, but that's why it's always a blessing if you can get in and out of the hospital. If you have to go
yeah,
there, if you get your treatment, get in and out. And why they encourage people to rehab at home, and But sometimes people feel rushed out the hospital. They're like, wait a minute, I'm not ready to go. And
Uh,
that's where those caregivers, those people that choose that as a profession, as you say, it's not for
it's
everyone.
not.
So
It's
that's
not.
where those people know they're, like Angela said, with the pandemic, they're priceless. I don't know if society has really done a good enough job about acknowledging them. And it comes back to what you said, pay them. People are like, you can give money.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if we're paying them enough.
No,
Um,
they're not.
No,
I
no.
I can't imagine, you know, when you see the numbers of people that have died, and a lot of them died in the hospital. I can't even imagine how those people feel that work there,
Mm.
because their job is to try to keep them alive.
Yep.
And in the beginning, there wasn't any chance for these people.
Yep.
By the time people went to the hospital, it was basically, I mean, too late. Um,
I also know
and
of doctors who and nurses that died in New York here.
yeah,
So at the beginning.
yeah,
So
exactly. It's if I had a crystal ball and I could see the future when I was a teenager, I would have still been a doctor and I would have just had a wellness clinic. And it's just been like, "Oh, you're well. Let me help you make you more well," and not had to deal with sick people. But I had no idea that at the time that there
yeah.
would be such a thing. So,
Hey,
you know.
hindsight. But Adrian, you stepped away from you because you started you went into the buying but in a different way, right?
well, that was my fantasy. Of course, they're mowing in the backyard right now. And maybe let me know if I get noisy background.
Okay.
But that was my fantasy buying. I don't know how I got into fashion. And then, I went to Howard University. I was going to be a marketing major. I don't know why I thought I had to be a marketing major. I don't know. I didn't really think it out because I didn't say, oh, I should go to FIT or, I should totally follow this fashion thing. I was like, okay, business. But let me tell you, I could not do the math to get a business degree from Howard University. My brain does not function that well that way. I couldn't get past whatever you had to get to do qualitative business analysis, to do whatever to get that business degree I was looking for. So I ended up getting an MRS degree. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Like I went from
MRS.
yeah, from Miss George to Mrs. someone. That's my little joke. I got
Oh.
my MRS degree. I got married as an undergrad. So that was my first degree. I got my
I
MRS.
thought that's what you were trying to say, but I thought, no, surely she's not saying that. But okay, sorry, keep
I
going.
did, and then, you have a life and you readjust. And I went back to
Uh,
school, English degree and other things. But the way I got into buying is because my family was entrepreneurial, and I had cousins in Chicago who opened up a high scale. They opened up two things, like the high scale fashion boutique, literally next door, like the hip hop boutique.
mm,
For that culture. And they did it at a great time on the South Side where people like support Black. So I actually got to do buying with them, and then when as a married woman, I worked in a boutique and I got to do buying with them. So it happened in a different way, but I didn't have that. Like I was gonna be living in New York, working for Bloomingdale's. I don't know what I thought it was gonna be like. But and it's probably good. The universe was like, no, because you can't afford to live in New York on what they pay buyers at, working at Bloomingdale's. You know what I mean? Coming out of college. So people can have unrealistic fantasies, and sometimes the universe can help you course correct
yeah,
nicely, I think.
I agree.
Um, yeah, but I hope that's where you were going with that question,
Oh,
because I
no,
don't want people, because I never, and I don't want to be bitter, and I don't have
no,
regrets,
no, no.
but
It's not about being bitter, but
yeah.
I asked based on the younger self because when we're younger, there's we all have that fantasy, and like you said, the universe course corrects us in its own way, and yeah, sometimes it comes back full circle, or sometimes it leads us into a different path, which is still meant for us. So
I wonder because like when you came, to America, and you're like, no, I don't want to work in a hospital, but you knew you didn't know what you wanted to do, but you knew what you didn't want to do. Is that how you found your
I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was just my fantasy was it was very very There was. I grew up under the military rule in Nigeria, and it was until '99 that we returned back to democracy. Yes, it was '99 that we returned back to democracy, which we've still been under. And so I arrived in 2006, no, 2007 in the United States, and so I'm barely used to democracy, but I still had a lot of the military mindset in a way. I guess it was always at the back of my mind because I remember being a teenager. There was every holidays in Nigeria. You always had the president who was a military general addressing the nation first thing in the morning, public holiday. My dear fellow Nigerians, read his speech. That's what you wake up to. So I used to mimic that. For some reason, I would just, I don't know, I think I was 11 years old, and one day I would just pretend I was holding a big sheet of paper, put on my sunshades, and sit down in front of the house. And somebody saw me one day. I was like, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm the general. I'm addressing the nation." And they all laughed. You look good, you look good. And so part of me said I wanted to be a general because that's the only way you can rule a country. And everybody would just laugh. But I didn't know how you became a general and what that entailed. But then later on, they asked me what you want. I was like, "Oh, I want a wife, 4 kids." I didn't even understand what that meant. House, 5 cars, all that kind of talk. But I never really knew what I wanted to do. And then when you arrive in America, it's like, okay, go hustle. I'm like, what? Hustle? What? Like, okay, if you don't want to work at, you don't want to be a nurse, all right, go get student loan. I'm like, loan? In Nigeria, loan is bad. Why am I getting a loan? I thought I'm in America, I can go to school just like that. Like, yeah, nobody goes to school just like that. Go get a loan, go to school. So I was freaking out, and then that's how a distant cousin called me and said, join the Navy. I was like, I don't know how to swim, even though I'm from a riverine tribe. He was like, man, just call them, they'll teach you how to swim and all that. So that was like the only way out. But that would start me on a path. And then I realized that even what I'm doing, what I ended up doing in the Navy, I'd been doing it for a while because I'd been doing logistics, I've been doing buying and selling back in Nigeria. And then I'm doing it in the Navy. And that's where I thought that the Navy taught me how to do it, but it's stuff that I'd been doing for years. But the Navy just helped me fine tune it and made me accept that I am a leader. I'd been avoiding leadership all my life. Put me in front. I'm like, no, I'm going to hide in the back. You let someone else because I'm humble, so you don't accept leadership. And then in the Navy, I didn't have a choice. So the responsibility was there, so you had to take it. And people always kept pushing it towards me. So, all right, I'll do it. And then I did a good job. And yeah, okay, we like what you're doing. Take more. I'm like, oh. I thought it's not supposed to work like this.
Told you. Yeah. Oops. Okay. Now that they see what I can do, they're going to give you more and more and more.
Yeah, because the upbringing wasn't what, like, you get a job, you're supposed to do you do a good job no matter what you're doing. So that was just me, and I became a workaholic and that kind of thing. But now I'm where, I handle what I like, I do what I like, and like with the podcasting, even the podcast. Back when I was in Nigeria, I had family members wanted to put me on state TV, state radio. Like, yeah, we like the way you talk about sports. We like the way you talk about current affairs. Hell no, I run away. I was afraid, like, my voice doesn't sound like a white person's voice because those are the professionals. That's what I thought professionals sounded like. I listened to the radio. I didn't realize that there were black people on VOA, black people on BBC speaking. How would I know? That was BBC, that was VOA I was listening to. So I thought everybody was white who worked there. So my voice did not sound like that. So that's how I wrote myself out. So everything I'm doing now, I've always done it in the past. And people could tell that, yes, I was good at it. So I'm now embracing all those skill sets. So we shall take a quick break. I'll be right back. Hi, everyone. We've made it 2 years, and who would have thought so? So let's go further. And make it 3, make it 4, make it 5, make it 6, who knows, 20. But we can't do this without your support. So join us on Patreon at patreon.com/whitelabelamerican pod or linktree.com/whitelabelamerican. Go there and you'll see our Patreon link, and you can join us for as low as $3. We have bonus content, we have bonus materials. There's so much juice over there that we don't release to the public, and yeah, you can contribute in making this podcast better. You can send questions, you can send your ideas, and also there's a lot of new things that are coming. The announcements are made on Patreon first, because we have to, take care of people who help make this podcast possible. So you can be the one to make this podcast what you want it to be. Come join us on Patreon and make it what you like to see. Join us, make it fantastic. Keep the 5 stars coming in, keep the love coming in. Thank you for the privilege of your company. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. So we shall begin with, let's see. So when did you decide, or like what was there anything that made you, I already feel like with Angela, Angela already mentioned Cincinnati, how boring it was. So I already feel like, okay, I can see where this was coming from. But Adrianne, DC did not sound boring. So let's see. Okay. When did you guys decide, like, I need to step out of United States? Like, what was it? That first moment you had to leave. Was it planned or was it just by chance?
I better go first because Angela has a better story. So if I
Okay.
follow
Oh,
her,
Lord.
I'm going to sound too boring. So I better go first. And I'm trying to think. I knew, like, growing up, I knew, like, my both sets of grandparents had traveled internationally. And my paternal uncle, he wasn't a diplomat status, but he worked for the State Department. Like, he wasn't a diplomat, but he worked for the State Department. And then in what is the Ford Foundation and like USAID, like different agencies and jobs that had international travel. So I knew the world was bigger than the US. I knew it was
Yes.
bigger than DC. We had travel. And I'm trying to think, I worked for a reggae record company. And one of our artists that we did distribution for was in the United Kingdom. Mad Professor. I don't know if anybody's heard from him. Mad Professor.
Oh, Josh is not there.
Yeah,
So I probably heard this
yeah,
song on the radio because reggae is huge in Nigeria.
exactly. And Ariwa Records was his. Ariwa Records. And just to give some Black love right now, at the time, he had the largest Black-owned studio in the United Kingdom,
Oh.
Mad Professor. And so I was working, we distributed his stuff. So I went to, he invited me to come. I had never been to Europe. And he invited me to come and stay at a house for artists that come and record. And he said, when I planned to go, he said, I'm not even going to be here, but my wife and her sister are going to meet you, give you the keys and show you around. And I had just such a great time and ended up meeting some guy. It was always something. Ended up meeting some guy who knew some people that knew my boss and just got plugged in. Again, like how the universe, it was like, all of a sudden, I was just like instantly well connected. I wouldn't have had these connections in me. I don't know how it happened. But so I was just like so connected, loved it, and then had this fantasy that I can live in London, I can live here, and heart has some heart romance in there, some heartbreak. Ended up going anyway, and got the visa worked out. Worked in the record business for a little while, and then, it was like no looking back after it, really. So I think it was being open to it, and then I like to think and say that, like, I always knew and admired Josephine Baker. And I know that's
Yeah.
when it's going to start sounding corny and stuff, but I always, I think because when I was an English major, like we studied, the literature of the Harlem Renaissance, and I think maybe that's when I discovered Josephine Baker. But I just admired and loved her, and said, she moved. She didn't feel like she had anything to lose. She could always come back. When you look at what she was leaving, she was like, if I can't do better somewhere else, at least try. So I felt like I had all like Josephine Baker dreams, but not to make it big like that, but to just make a life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, don't you?
I believe I have an idea of what you mean.
Yeah. Okay. I guess you're waiting for me to
Oh,
say
yes.
something. All right. I didn't know if Adrian was done or not. Okay. So I actually moved from Ohio, like, let's say a good 5 or 10 years before it's more closer to 10 years before I moved to Europe. I moved to Florida. And what prompted me, I'm not entirely sure what prompted me to leave, but I was doing a friend a favor who had needed some help. I used to work in IT, and they needed some help installing an accounting system for this project. A friend of mine worked for Coca-Cola, and they were setting up a factory in Eritrea. And so I went there, spent a few weeks there doing working, whatever. And then I was supposed to leave. I left, I don't know, and I met I met a German man on my way home. But that's not, I don't know if I should tell this whole story because I don't know, it's a long story.
Oh, it's your time. Go ahead.
Just
I've heard this story before,
my
but I
story.
like hearing it again.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You want to hear it again? Well, I don't know what I said. I don't remember what I said before, but yeah, I met a German man on my way home. We were in the airport in Eritrea, and the speaker system the loudspeaker system where they announced the planes was really bad. And I mean, it was, you could sort of hear what they're saying, but not entirely. And so this guy walks up to me and he says, "Did you hear what flight they announced?" And the reason why this was important was because there were two flights leaving for Frankfurt, Germany, like a few minutes apart.
Oh, okay.
And so one was on one airlines and one was on another. So it was important to know which one you were going for. And I said, "Yeah, I have no idea, but let's get in the line." And we started talking, and he seemed like a nice person, but he seemed really a little bit too friendly. He seemed, which I mean, people know what I mean. He seemed a little too friendly. So when we got to we were in the right line, it turns out, and we got into the waiting room, the waiting area, and then you had to walk to the tarmac, and to go out and walk. There was no jetway. You had to actually walk up the stairs of the plane. So he had all this stuff that he was bringing back for Eritrean friends to bring back to Germany. And I just had like one little bag. So I just was like, okay, I got to get away from this guy. Because he's a little too friendly, I was just like, I'm not really interested in like whatever. And so then I just rushed along, went up the stairs, found my seat, and then like, I'm going to say 15 minutes later, he shows up and his seat is right across from mine. And I'm like, okay, fine. So we got to talking on the plane a little bit, and I had realized when I realized it the day that my plane was supposed to leave, that I had screwed up my plane reservations. And that I was actually, I really made a real mistake, because on the way to Eritrea, it took 2 days. But on the way back, I could have flown straight through. I mean, it would have been a long flight, but I could have flown. I would have still been in the same day, and I didn't realize that. So when we got to Frankfurt, I was like, "Can you help me find a hotel room?" I wasn't, it's like I'd been to Frankfurt, but only passing through.
Yeah.
I hadn't actually like checked it out. And so he was like, "Yeah, sure." And I ended up staying at the hotel in the hotel in the airport, which I guess I could have found myself. And then we went out on what one could call a date. He went home to change, and we both wanted to take a shower, because you couldn't take a shower in Eritrea. So he went home to take a shower, and I'm like, "Oh, I cannot wait to get into a shower." So we went out, and we also had been a little deprived of Western food. So we went to McDonald's, which is kind of crazy, but but we were both like, we just want some Western food. So we went to McDonald's. We had a nice time. He gave me this was, I mean, people had email addresses, but he didn't have one. I had one. He gave me his address and phone number, and I said, okay, fine. If I'm ever, in Germany, I'll give you a call or whatever. And I thought I would never see him again. Needless to say, I did see him again, and we started dating. Um, and for about 2 years, we dated, like, he'd come to America and I'd go to Germany. And at a certain point, I was just like, he said he wanted to move to the States. And I thought, yeah, okay. And then I really thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I want to move. I want to go to Germany. I want to have some adventure. And so I packed up and moved, and I came to Germany with 3 suitcases. Um, I've been living here for quite some time now, although me and this guy are not together anymore. So there's no like happily ever after. We were together for about 10 years, but I am happily married to someone else.
Hey, it's still a beautiful story, and
Yes.
it wasn't as
Yes.
long as you may have thought it was.
No, I made it a little shorter because it is a little bit long, and I don't want people. I'm happily married to, ironically enough, an American that I met here.
Oh, I always thought it was a German you were married to.
Yeah, but no, I married an American, which I know. And the funny thing is that a lot of people think my husband is German. I don't know why, but they do. But he's not. He was born in Pennsylvania, so very American. And so I would have to say the lesson that people can draw from this story is just have some adventure.
Yeah.
Everything doesn't have to be so serious,
I agree.
A lot of people thought that I would kind of screw up my life by coming here, and I actually never intended to stay this long. But I'm really glad that I came here. And I mean, I can't say it's for everyone, but it's, given the situation in America, sometimes I'm really glad that I am not there to have to deal with it. I can contribute to fighting all the issues. I can still contribute from here.
Yeah. So thank you again for sharing that. I have one question though. So you are the first person that I know of who has lived in Eritrea, and I'm always curious about that place because I don't think that's one place I haven't met anybody that's lived in there. And
Really?
yeah, I've met a lot of Africans. I know a lot of Africans, but I know Ethiopians, but I don't know any Eritrean in my circle. And the current description of Eritrea is the North Korea of Africa. So, what was it like for you the period while you were there?
Well, okay. When I was there, it was before the war started.
Yeah.
Again, there was a break there. They had the civil war with Ethiopia, and then there was like a break of I don't know how many years, and then that's one of the reasons why I didn't go back, because the war broke out. I was thinking about going back, but it was a really nice place, and all the people were super nice and friendly, and everything was really clean. I emphasize that part. It was really clean. And I mean, everything, it seemed like a thriving, like it was really going somewhere different than where it went. And how Eritrea has turned out is, I mean, it's surprising to me. I mean, it was so safe, and like, and what I mean when I say safe, I don't mean because it was in Africa. I mean in comparison to America.
Oh, I understand that. It's like
Yeah.
when I was in Bahrain, I've never. That's the safest place I've been in. Even during Arab Spring, you still didn't lock your doors. You just, I was there for Arab Spring, and There was not one person I knew was like, "Oh, I'm leaving my house, so I lock." No, yeah, your doors, you
Yeah.
left it open. I was safe
Yeah.
on the streets.
It
The
was.
So when
only
I went to when I was in my one of my friends from Howard, her wedding in West Virginia, they didn't lock their doors. So there are places in America where you can't lock your doors. I just have to say that because
well,
we do have safe havens.
there's that too, and it's also, but West Virginia. I also have something about West Virginia that it's I don't know, but
I don't
Oh.
there's something also about
Oh.
West Virginia that no, I agree. I don't respect people in West Virginia, but it's also West Virginia.
And I know
That's
we
how I would
lock our
say
doors
it.
in Sweden. I haven't been anywhere in Sweden where we don't lock our doors. And my people in Germany lock their doors and stuff.
Oh yeah,
So,
my,
Well,
so
my
this,
father my father-in-law does that, but he's also
I,
a retired policeman too. So
but to
yeah,
be in a
but
place where you don't lock your doors would blow my mind. So maybe I have to visit
okay, I don't
Bahrain.
know if you didn't lock your doors because I wasn't in charge of that, let's just say, in our home. But in Eritrea, but I mean, but it was safe, like on the streets.
yeah.
I'm always, it doesn't matter where I live, I'm always going to lock my doors. There's a, here, it's where I live now. I live in a kind of a small city in Germany, and it's safe here. But one of the things, there's a column in the newspaper, and it's like the police things that have happened, the police, oh God, I can't think of the English word,
The crime
incidences.
reports.
Yeah,
Crime
it's
reports.
it's a crime report, but it's not exactly. It's like things that happen. And one of the things that happens around here a lot is that somebody will get drunk, they'll walk home, they'll open the wrong door and
Oh
pass out on the couch or
yeah,
something. And then people will wake up and, like somebody, you'll get up in the morning and then come out to the living room, and there'll be a person passed out on your couch or something. So that's a reason for me to lock my doors. Like,
actually, I almost did that in Bahrain. I was the drunk person.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so
But
it's
I didn't go
okay to
into the
lock your
person's
door.
house. Luckily,
Thank goodness.
they locked their door. I was wondering why am I struggling with the door, and
Why you couldn't get it
it was
open?
like 2
Yeah,
a.m.
that's
and yeah, the person's the woman opened the door, and I had my keys, but I was like, what? Why is this? And I went to the wrong floor. I think
yeah.
I went one floor below mine, and I was like, yeah. So I was putting my keys, and that was the day I decided to try to unlock. I don't usually lock my door, but I was so drunk that I tried to. I was trying
Yeah.
to,
See, if
and
that would have been in the States, depending on whose door, that could have got you killed.
oh yes,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
But
For
yeah,
sure.
when the door opened like 2 a.m., I was around 2 a.m. in the morning, and a woman opened the door, and I was like, huh? Why is there a woman here? I wasn't expecting anybody. Why is? And she looked at me, and and her husband came to the door and was like, hello, my friend, are you okay? I was like, oh. And then I looked at the door, I looked at the number on the door, and I was like, oh yeah, this is not my place. And he's like, yes, it's not. And they were so nice about it. I was like, but I was becoming sober on the spot. Like I was so embarrassed that I became sober on the spot, and I was like, oops. Yeah, this is not my place. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I wish I could disappear right now. He was like, "You want something to drink and eat?" I was like, "You still offering me something to eat and drink?" I thought I was harassing you guys by no, I just need to go. It's like, "Are you okay? Sure? You okay? Let me get you water to drink or juice." I was like, "No, it's fine, it's fine. Let me do my walk of shame quietly."
Say,
And
meanwhile, somebody's calling the police. They're trying to keep you there on the
uh,
scene.
now I think it was mostly the Americans who were very we caused a lot of drama there. So anywhere we have a base, we cause a lot of drama. So I think there were a lot of them were used to it. A lot of locals were used to it, and but yeah, I was just lucky to run into a friendly couple, and but even yeah, but they were never. Most of the Bahrainis that I met, they never had issues. Especially like me being a black person, I had every time if I, like when I even walked into their ghettos, if I got lost, like I just assalamu alaikum. Even when the only time I should have been in trouble was when I ran into the biggest protest ever. that I've seen in my life. The Shia protesters were protesting, and they surrounded the vehicle. We were the only vehicle on the road. It was a Shia taxi. We weren't supposed to take that, but I was that guy who I'm like, it's cheaper, so I would take that. And I knew how to haggle prices. Being that I grew up in Nigeria, it was something that we did all the time. So, if you took a Sunni taxi, we were allowed to, you don't haggle prices because they have a meter. But Shia taxi drivers don't have meters, so you haggle. And because I haggled the prices, the taxi driver thought that I was the superior person in the vehicle. But my boy who was with me, he was actually three ranks above me. So he never knew. But when we got in, the driver said, "Can I take a shortcut?" And I was like, "Fine. Anyway, just get us where we're going." And this shortcut led to a street where we're the only vehicle, a crowd that looked like over 1,000 people in my estimation
Wow.
surrounded us, and they were yelling. All had the black flag, the Shia flag, and the women, children, everybody. And they spoke to the driver, and he kept pointing at me, and I was like, "Oops, yeah." And by the time the people who were speaking to the driver like walked around, were coming towards me, it was a manual window, so I just wound down and I had my hand out and I shook hands with them like "Assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum," and they were like, "Oh, okay, cool, alaikum assalam." And now it's like tension is already down, and they're like, "I'm American." I said, "Yes." "Military?" "Yes." "Which one?" "Navy." I said, "Mashallah, I like Navy." I said, "I like you too, my man. Yeah, go chop. Yeah, fist bump." And he said, "I want to say I like Obama." I said, "Oh man, I like Obama too. Come on, man, come on." So fist bump for you too. And the other one said, my king, not good." I said, "Hey, I'm new in your country. I don't know your king. I'm sorry to hear that, but I will let my government know that your king is not behaving well." One said, "Tell Obama, tell Obama." I said, "You know what? I bring up my phone right now, and I will start. I will send that
The
text."
hotline. Oh my
But
God.
my brothers, I'm trying to get somewhere. Can you help me? And then whoever, I think he was like their leader, he was just like, "It's okay, okay, okay." And he just yelled at the crowd, and they parted. They just made it like it was like the Red Sea was just. uh, my boy was in the vehicle. Who he had actually said, "Man, I wish we had guns." I was like, "Guns for what?" So he was like, "Dude, how you know these people? How you ever met them before? How the hell you?" Like he couldn't believe when we drove through, and I was like, you just talk to them.
Yeah.
I was barely 2 3 months in the country when Arab Spring kicked off, and that was my
Talking
first.
about keeping cool under pressure, do you think that was your military? It sounds like part military training and part just your personality. You're going to be fist bumping everybody where you go, it seems
Uh,
like.
well, I mean, in Nigeria, I've been in some. I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't. I was born into an upper middle class family, but life happened, and then I will end up being raised by people who weren't in the upper middle class. But as soon as I could get out of the house, you find me in the lower neighborhoods, not always in the ghetto, but I hung out with kids from the ghetto a lot. So I mixed with everybody, and I think in a way I just knew how to blend with people. And if someone said I was saying the wrong thing, I knew how to say I'm sorry. But as soon as I walked into a room, I first give my salutations, and people were like, "Okay, yeah, he cool, he's all right. You allow you to stay." If they said I wore the wrong colors, yes, they do that in many parts of Nigeria. You wear the wrong colors, it's a death sentence. And there have been people who've done that to me when I moved to a new city. People like marked me like I was wearing the wrong colors for 1 week, tried to find out who I was. Yeah, so I had to flip my colors the next week, get them confused. But yeah, it was just all these things added up to my journey in the military, and then when I end up in a place like that, and being that some of my first friends in life were Muslims
Hmm.
until family intervened and were like, "Why are you friends with a Muslim? You're a Christian. You should have only Christian friends." So yeah, but every Muslim holiday, you're always at the Muslim family's house eating, and Muslims always brought food to us. In Nigeria, it's a little bit different. Muslims always hooked you up. So now I'm in a country that's predominantly Muslim, and then I run into a Muslim crowd. I knew how to say "Assalamu alaikum." That's basic. So why won't I say that? And yeah, so it was just life coming out of me, and also part of me was also panicking at the same time. But the best thing was to put up a cool face, and I came out of it, and my boy was like, "I don't believe it. You've been here before." I was like, "No, I haven't. I just haven't." Yeah. So
Hey, can I ask you a question really quick?
sure.
You said in Nigeria, if you wore the wrong colors, what do you mean, like a gang or
Oh
something?
yeah, in some places, not everywhere, but in some places, like the city that I identify with the most is Port Harcourt. So we don't the language is not gangs. We call it cults.
Hmm.
So those are gangs. Well, Nigerians we like being extra with our lingua. So yeah, so those are cults, and a lot
Yeah.
of our cults are found in universities. That's why you have a bunch of Nigerians who we think we know the world because we're educated. We're educated gangsters, but majority of our gangs are found in university. You have to be in university to be officially initiated into a gang. But
Wow.
if you're not in university, you haven't gained admission, then that means you're like a foot soldier. You can't really rise up the ranks, but they will still put you to work. So they'll use you as a foot soldier. But the guys who actually rise up the ranks of the gangs, and it's both for men and women, by the way. Yeah, they're gangs for women. Because like as soon as you're a freshman, your first week in the university, they start recruiting. They're hunting around. They're sniffing out freshmen that first week of arrival. They're going around looking for potentials. So yeah, so if you're in a town that has a big university or universities, and you wear one of the gang colors, you're a new person in the town, you're of age, members of the gangs, they start looking around like, oh, who's this new person? So when I moved
Wow.
to Port Harcourt, and for 1 week, it's not like I planned it, but I just wore yellow shirts only with I don't, but whichever color of pants I was wearing, but yellow shirts was all I was wearing. And a guy whose nickname was Yellow Pigeon came up to me, and he was just like, how you doing? And that's a dangerous question in Port Harcourt when you're on the streets. When they come up to you, a boy, and they ask you, how you doing? You're not supposed to answer I'm doing fine, because there's a gang known as Fine Boys. So if you say I'm doing fine, then you say that means you're a fine boy, or in our lingua we have Adebam. There's Degbam too. So I didn't know that, and I think I said one of those two, and he was like, oh, okay, nice to meet you. And he shook me and he did the finger thing. And I was wondering, what are you doing? Oh, okay. And he walked away. So I didn't know that he had marked me down. But one of my neighbors who already knew me for a little bit came up to me and asked, what did Yellow Pigeon want with you? And I said, oh, he asked me, how are you doing? And he said, what's your response? And I said, I'm fine. He said, oh, no, 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 no. And he ran after him. I was like, hey, Yellow, come, 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 come. Now it's not what you think. It's not what you think. And he said, what? And I saw them have a conversation. And he looked back at me and was like, oh, well, tell him not to say that again. And then he walks away. So yeah, they were already marking me down. Like, oh, which group does he belong to? Do I need to watch my back when he's around? And there are people trying to take it seriously. One of my friends who was studying law. If you're a law student in Nigeria, you always have to wear white blouses with black pants to school, because that's what law students are required to wear. I don't know why, but that's why they're always required to wear that. He almost lost his life. Well, he went straight from school to the wrong part of town to go see a family member to get money for his tuition, and two boys accosted him and were like, "Yeah, we see your colors. Why did you come to our part of town in these colors?" It was his school outfit. That's his school. He's wearing his school.
Wow.
And yeah, so while so he sees that one is already circling him, and he's like, "Oh well, I have money in my pocket, so I have to protect the money because I know I can't get this cash back anymore." So and before a brick comes from nowhere, hits his head, and he just starts running, screaming, "Please help me, help me!" And people think like, "Oh, it's two gang members fighting." So people like, we're not even gonna intervene because they just saw the white and black and assumed that he came
Yeah, but
flashing his colors. And I'm like, he's a law student. Law
How
students
does
wear
that
that.
work though? I mean, like, if you just don't know, like you have a people wear colors.
Yeah, there's a lingua for people who aren't members of any gang, and I'm not the one who made up the language. I don't know how the language came about, but it's yeah, we identify as JEW. That's what we identified as. If you're not a member of a gang, I don't know who came up with that, but you just have to figure a way out to dress normally, but maybe you have to speak loudly, and somebody you have to know somebody from that part of. If you go into that area, know somebody in that area who can identify you. So, like, there are places where if we're going to chase girls in that part of town, you tell the girl to come out of her house, like, because we use motorbikes for transportation. So you come in on a motorbike. So you call her, like, come out, wait for me outside your house. Don't be inside when I arrive, because if it takes 5 minutes for you to come out, something could have happened to me in that 5 minutes. Or someone who lives there, and being a young man, yeah, we took too many risks that now looking back, I was like, man, was it even worth it? How are you supposed to go to those neighborhoods? But yeah, so you make a call and you call your friend, like, okay, I don't like this guy, but he lives in this neighborhood. He has some weight. People know him, so I will have to go see him first. I'm like, hey, I'm going to look for a girl who lives here. Can you just escort me so that people see me walking with you? And they're like, oh, who's? He's my friend. He came to visit me. Oh, okay, so we don't have to go after him. All right, we don't have to think about his colors that he's wearing. All right, so he's not a threat. He's not a target. And yeah, then
Wow.
people take that seriously. I'm like, I don't know how you all do the calculation, but yeah. So if I hadn't gotten that orientation within my first 2 weeks in that town, yeah. And funny thing is, everybody knows somebody from that town, from that part of Nigeria, Burna Boy. That's
Wow.
somebody who is from that part of Nigeria, and he acts. I mean, he sometimes does like he's a gangster. He's not, but I think that's part of the reason why he acts like he's a gangster sometimes, because yeah, he grew up with some of that stuff. We lived in the same area, never encountered him, but he probably may have encountered some of those boys, because there's no way you're a young man in that part of Nigeria where if you weren't connected to someone strong enough to defend you, then you've been oppressed by those people. Because you could be drinking with your friends in the evening, and then somebody just shows up and is like, hey, I have stainless, which is a gun, and says, all right, all of you at this table, just put whatever you have on the table for me, and I'll just collect it. And we'll just be like, well, we are not members, so this is all the money we have. We just leave it on the table for you. All right, thank you for the offering. All right, it was nice knowing you all. Yes. You can't go to the police and report even. You just be like, yes, with smiles.
Wow.
And then you have to figure out how to pay for the drinks you were having.
So pay for your drinks when you get them, because you don't know what's going to happen before you settle your bill,
Well,
right? And if this happens when you're on a date,
oh,
it's not used against you, is it? Because your date understands.
yeah, with dates, it's complicated. With a date, you try not to take a date on you bring your date to you bring her to your area. Like, I lived in an area that was considered neutral territory, so they never went after each other in my estate where I lived. So you try and bring your date to that kind of place. So if one of the boys who wasn't aware of the neutrality on ground tried to overstep, then you could call one of the names of one of the senior people that you knew, like, hey, I'll report you to this guy. And he was like, why? How you know that? I'm like, you can do whatever you want to do now, but when I tell this person, you see, you find out. So you might either just end my life now, or when your boss finds out what you did, you're going to be like, why is this person so sure about my boss finding out? It might be a bluff. Do I want to take that chance that it's a bluff? You know what? Next time. And then he finds out that the next time he sees me sitting down with his boss drinking. Oh, okay, so you really knew my boss. okay. I'm glad I didn't think it was a bluff. Oh, it was actually a bluff though. But so yeah, there were chances like that. But looking back now, I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know why we were even trying to date because it was way too risky. But hey, you couldn't stop honey boys from being honey because yeah, that was yeah. We weren't thinking with our heads. That's just it. So we just had to go. We saw women. We didn't care where they lived. We just went there and then prayed that nothing bad happened. And I made it out alive.
You know, I think one of the topics Angela and I talked about on the Black Women in Your podcast was dating. I don't know if we talked about dating, but we talked to different guests about dating in different countries. So this is fascinating to me because it just reminds me, just different social norms. If we're going to travel, no matter where we're traveling, we need to do a little bit of research, or as you say, have somebody on the ground. Even if you're a local, you need to have somebody in the neighborhood where you're going. But I find it fascinating that because it seems so similar, and all I kept hearing in my head was colors, colors, colors. Was it Ice Cube that made that song? I was just thinking about that.
Oh
The gang
yeah,
colors, like in
that was in
LA.
a movie, wasn't it?
Yeah,
About
called
some
colors.
Yeah.
gang movie.
I
Yeah.
don't. But it just made me think of that. Like, you didn't want to wear red in the wrong neighborhood or blue in the wrong
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood. And I didn't know, but the thing about the school uniform, woo, that blew my mind. Because black and white, you would think that's like a waiter's uniform too.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
mean,
they do look like waiters.
that's a common outfit though.
Yeah.
Black pants and a white shirt. That's
Mhm.
not, it's not like it's so special that nobody would ever wear it.
But
Yeah.
once you're
So-
committed to a certain life, yeah, you're committed. So yeah, but it wasn't always like that in Port Harcourt. But now it's a very big thing. The government claims they fight about it, but I'm like, there are members of the government that we know of, even at the federal level, that are people who rose up the ranks from universities. So it's officially when it began in the 70s, it began as fraternities. The way you have fraternities over here, that's what it was
I was
supposed
gonna
to
say
be.
it sounds just like it. Because I was gonna say it sounds just like it. Because when you step on campus, they're checking you out from day one when you're on
Yeah.
campus, or you one of us. People try to recruit you for different things.
That was the idea. So like the very first one was the Sea Pirates. The first Nobel laureate from Nigeria, Wole Soyinka, he's a founding member of that. And then it evolved into a group that they actually got machetes and they go full violent. So there are different groups that broke out from that. And the Sea Pirates still exist, where they are more into the arts and because Wole Soyinka still identifies as a sea dog. I think they call themselves sea dogs. But there's the guys that broke out from what he started is I think they're called I've forgotten what they're called, but there's a whole bunch. I think BBC Africa just had a documentary on one of the most violent groups, Black Axe, and that documentary was still limited in my opinion because most of us who are familiar with groups like that, we know that there's a lot that wasn't even covered in the documentary. So, but many people, it got Nigerian Twitter talking for some days. They were like, "Oh yeah, we know about people chasing people on the streets," but they went into Lagos, and I was like, "Oh, this group has even expanded into Lagos. Like they were everywhere in Lagos. Like now they even had people who are not even in universities. These are like the guys who." Back in the 90s, they would be like, yeah, you can't gain admission to university, so you're just you're an errand boy. That's what, and they will rub it in your face. But now, these guys are now getting power, like political power. There's some with just armed power, and I'm like, it doesn't end good. It doesn't end well when those kind of
Raphael,
things start happening.
Can I ask you a question? Because
Sure.
BBC Africa, what is your personal opinion of BBC Africa? Because BBC, we know, British Broadcasting Company. Are they letting us tell our stories? Are the Brits telling our story? You can be black and British. Is it complicated? Is it?
I think like I don't watch the main BBC anymore, but BBC Africa is one of the few channels that still covers African. I listen to their African news podcast daily, Mondays to Fridays, and my biggest complaint is that they don't cover the smaller countries. It's mostly the heavyweights and a lot of Nigeria that you get. But I don't think they do the best job, but they still do a job. That's how I'll put it. It's not the best. VOA actually does a better job than BBC Africa. But like the documentaries, I think they go a little bit further with the documentaries. But like Deutsche Welle actually has better documentaries than BBC Africa, in my opinion. Because I learn more.
Okay, and I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with that because I just wonder if you're an African in Europe or in the U.S., an African off of the continent, and if that was your source of news, do you feel good about it? Like you feel represented, and it's interesting that you said they could do a better job with the smaller countries. For
Yeah,
sure.
I've written to them before about that, and they actually read one of my letters on air. That yeah, I just wish the I see a lot more representation of the smaller countries because there's a lot of stuff happening. Like when there was a Deutsche Welle documentary that I watched about the Madagascar election, pre-pandemic presidential election, and almost every candidate had a Russian attaché, like they were called the Russian, um, what was it called, like Russian advisors for almost all the candidates, and it was weird. And these were things that I had not paid attention to, but when you take that, you watch that documentary, seeing what was happening in Madagascar, then you now look at the Nigerian election in 2015, which was a test run for what will happen in the United States 2016 with the social media attacks. Russia had been doing a lot of stuff which they were just test running in Africa, and it was like nobody was really catching on to a lot of things. But it was like Africa was just a test run for a lot of things, and I'm like, yeah. So if but back then I was only listening to BBC Africa. So if you're only listening to one source and you're not catching the smaller countries, you'll be missing out on all these things happening until years later. Then I'll watch the Madagascar, the Deutsche Welle documentary on Madagascar elections, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, okay, now that makes sense. I could have seen this coming, but yeah, then I'm like, oh, okay, now it makes a whole lot of sense why a lot of the election apathy that's in Africa and a whole lot of things that's that a lot of the language that I'm fighting against. Like anytime I'm on a Nigerian forum and I'm talking to people and they're like, oh, all politicians are the same. Why I got to vote? And then you're excited for somebody, but you're like at the same time you're still saying everybody is the same, and I'm like, yeah, but you've seen that somebody has been sowing the seeds for a long time in the smaller places, and it's like, oh, it's successful. Yeah, okay, now we'll move up to another place. And then you move up. And then it's only when they get to the big countries and you want to start reporting about they're doing the damage here in the big countries. I'm like, yeah, you could have been reporting about this a few years ago, but you weren't doing your job. You only focus on the big countries. And then the people who could have countered this, who could have known that there's something like this happening, yeah, nobody's paying attention to that. So that's where I fault BBC Africa. But I listen to, I try to catch as many news networks on the continent like SABC, Arise News in Nigeria. It's complicated with Arise News, but I also have some Nigerian journalists that I follow and Ghanaian, and I get my news from different sources at the same time.
Yeah, that's really interesting that they tried this disinformation campaign in Nigeria first, and I guess it must have worked.
It worked.
So they just went to the next, next place.
It worked because it was a success. The whistleblower at Facebook actually referenced that when he was testifying to Congress in that was after the 2016 elections, when they had that big Facebook, the Cambridge Analytica whistleblower person, and he brought up Nigeria a lot, and that was when I began to even notice a lot of my Facebook habits, and then listening to the Black Guy Who Tips talk about this, I was like, okay, it made sense why I was very angry, why I was even thinking that I was smart enough with some of the memes that I was reposting, but they still got me. And then it also made sense why some of the messages that I was getting from Nigeria, I was like, what the hell are you sending me? This doesn't make sense. Who's the person that sent you this? And these were people in the military, these were people in higher government positions. And I'm like, where you get this from? Oh, well, it don't matter. It's the message. I'm like, but where do you get this from? How can you say Libya is shipping oranges full of HIV blood? They injected oranges with HIV blood as revenge for Nigeria not defending Gaddafi from Obama's attack. So they're going to poison Nigeria. I'm like, the most. I'm like, what kind of Muslim? Where is this agenda coming from? Where, like, and a whole bunch of people just believe that, and you've seen all manner of things, but instead of increasing and increasing, oh, we're going to boycott beef. I'm like, what are you going to eat if you boycott beef? It's the Muslims sending the beef. We need to boycott and show the Muslims. I'm like, where's all this? And then instead of increasing, so I started warning people, like, stop sending me this. But all of a sudden, this stuff was just increasing on WhatsApp. You see it increasing on Facebook. And you're like, where's it coming from? Who sent this to you? Oh, I got it from one of my church members. But nobody can ever tell you where it came from. And they're like, man, this America you're living in has changed you. That's why you don't want to. You're not reading the message. It's the truth. I'm like, it's not the truth. Come on. There's something
Yeah,
going on here.
isn't that crazy how sometimes people can believe the weirdest things
Mm-hmm.
and they think that they're right and that, I mean, it, like the poisoning the oranges, someone would have, no matter how, I mean, I don't know that much about Nigeria, but let's just say your government was corrupt, then somebody would have noticed that and been like, no, you can't bring these poisonous oranges here. You know,
It's
like it's not
that
really,
it,
that's
it was
if you could
just
even
wild.
do something like that. Yeah. That we have this, I mean, we have this big problem in America
Yeah.
with
So
people, but it's all over the
it
world.
is
It's all over. And
all over
that
the
there's
world.
so many people who I, I don't, the things that they believe. I mean, I was doing an event like and we were outside, getting people registered to vote, things, Americans that live overseas. And someone said to me, there was a picture, a postcard, and it had Obama on it and something. And the person said, well, I'm definitely not going to do anything with you people because you have a picture of him. And I said, you mean Obama? And she said, yeah, he's a child molester. And I'm like,
Uh,
what? Where are you getting this? This was in Germany. Okay, this is not in
mhm.
America. So all this QAnon and whatever else, it's all over everything. And the only way to fight it is, I mean, yes, you can contradict these people, but you just have to make sure that your friends and family understand what the truth is. And maybe they can help a few other people too. That's the only thing that I can think of. I don't know how you, once somebody is brainwashed, with these ideas, and it seems to be it must not be too hard. There must be people who are, because someone would have to prove to me that Obama was a child molester. Like it would have to be on the news, like, we have a film here or something. But I wouldn't believe it otherwise. I mean, he's a good and decent man. Um, some of the things that people believe are very shocking.
Oh yeah.
And yeah,
Oh yeah. They
we
are.
definitely, people need to vote. I have to make my pitch for
Oh
whoever
please
is
go ahead.
listening. US citizens need to vote, at home or abroad, because if the Republicans, sorry for your Republican listeners, but if you have
Oh
any,
please don't be
but
sorry. I
uh,
they know how my stance. So
if Republicans take control of our government, in control of the House, the Senate, or the state legislatures, they are, I mean, they've already said what they want, what they're going to do.
mhm.
And you don't want any of it. I mean, one of the first things everybody thinks, you know, like a national ban on abortion would be terrible, but one of the things that they also want to do is get rid of Social Security.
Yes.
And that is terrible. Like a lot of people would be hurt by this in currently and in the future. Um, they want they want a lot of things that nobody wants. Guns everywhere. I mean, there's guns everywhere in America, but it would be worse.
Yep.
Because they would want to get rid of the last few remaining laws. There's so many people that think that, and I don't know why they think this, that you're safer if everyone has a gun.
No,
you're not safer.
You're not.
You're not safer. You're not safer at all. Yeah. So please, if you are in the US, go to iwillvote.com. If you're overseas, go to votefromabroad.org and request an absentee ballot if you're an overseas voter. Because it's really important that people vote this year.
I'm gonna hop on that bandwagon and take it to if you're going to be 18 in November, so you're a high school student, maybe you're a freshman in college, register now. You probably missed your primary if you haven't registered yet. But the big dance, the main election, is in November. So if you're 17, going to be 18, get that done. If you're in freshman on college campus, avoid the gangs, right? Don't get recruited by the gangs, right?
Nope.
But get your voter registration. Ask people in your dorm, are you registered to vote? Find out what sororities and fraternities are doing voter registration. Speaking of the Obamas, my favorite Obama, Michelle, is the founder of When We All Vote. It's a nonprofit organization that wants to change the culture around voting. And I invite you to be part of that move. Part of the culture around voting is that needs to be changed, I think, is that it stops and ends with voting. That's the first step.
I agree.
And that if you don't get the result you want, then you're not going to vote again because it didn't turn out for you. It's a marathon, right? Yeah. It's not. It's a muscle. You exercise it. You don't. You didn't get a handstand the first time. You keep doing it. You have to voting. There's always every year there's an election, so make it part of your muscle memory. And it's something that adults do. It's just part of adulting. It's not optional. And we don't live in a country that makes it mandatory. I know it's mandatory in Belgium, and I can't remember, maybe one other country that I know of.
I know of Australia is mandatory too.
Australia, yes. Yeah. And my musician boyfriend that I had at the time that probably didn't care anything about politics, but he was like, I can't stand people that don't vote in Belgium and then want to complain. Even he knew. He said, I gotta vote if I want to. So yeah, complain. Be on people's backs, but vote, help other people vote every time. It's not a one-off. I know if you're like me, you're exhausted. I mean, it was ever since 2012. It's so important. Obama had to get reelected. 2008, he had to get, it's been, the urgency has just increased in my voting life since 2008. And I think it's only going to increase as we talk about problems, whether it's the environment. Angela can get on you about that, the environment, whether we talk about guns, those things aren't going away. So definitely register to vote. You can go to When We All Vote. If you're overseas, the federal government, we have federally protected rights to vote as Americans living overseas. You do not want to just request your basic absentee ballot from your state if you know you're going to be overseas, because if it doesn't arrive, you don't have any recourse. But if you do it the federally protected way through a federal, because it's a law for military and overseas citizens, if you do it that way, I exercised this right in 2008 when my Obama ballot, when my presidential ballot didn't arrive like a week or two before the election. I thought this is kind of too close. So I knew about the federal write-in absentee ballot. You download it, you literally handwrite it in. They have all the instructions. I FedExed that puppy back in. It was worth that investment for me. And sure enough, a couple of days after the election, my ballot arrived. But if I hadn't gone through the right way to register as an overseas voter, I wouldn't have had that protection to vote. So overseas citizens have a couple more things to think about. We need to start earlier. We need to make sure we get our ballots in our email box. We may not be able to email it back, but get it in your email box. Angela, what are some other tips?
Um, Ask for your ballot to be delivered to you by email as opposed to the post,
Mm.
because the mail in the United States and in other places is unreliable at this time. Um, I would say, just not a tip, but you know, if somebody tells you that voting is pointless, um, just don't listen to them.
I
It's
agree.
not pointless. It's never pointless. If it was pointless, then they wouldn't do it.
Hmm.
Well,
And
and you
it's
know
not,
what? Yeah,
yeah,
Angela, that's a good reminder for now this is going to speak to Republicans or Democrats. We know the overseas vote for our Arizona and Georgia. Those elections went to Biden by under 20,000 votes, and overseas ballot votes would have covered that margin alone. So if you're a Republican and like, hey, Biden, it's like, well, you didn't vote. If you're an American that was like, oh, my vote wouldn't have mattered. Look, you almost blew it for us.
Hmm.
It's close, and that's an example for president. We did it for the Senate as well when Georgia had that runoff. But think about your hometown and those races that are happening there. You vote in your state, your city, and your state
yeah,
first before
that's
you
right.
vote for for the president. So, think about what's happening in that school district where your mom still lives, where you're registered to vote. Who's talking about giving living wages in that town? Who's talking about, there's some jurisdictions that, want to take actual things off of curriculums,
Yeah.
Yeah,
or
Oh,
who's
they've
want to
already
who
put,
wants
started.
to?
They've already
Yeah,
started
exactly.
they
in
So,
have.
many states.
yeah, or they want to put guns in the hands of teachers.
Yeah.
We were talking about that. So these
Florida.
votes,
That
those
is a
overseas votes matter. So don't get hung up on, oh, my vote doesn't matter, or I've been gone so long. If you have any attachment to the United States at all and you're a citizen, it's your right. And I think it's your responsibility to, we may not be living there, but it's still our mess, our
well,
success, our country,
you can't hide
so
from America. That's
No.
the other thing, is that we're everywhere into everything. And so you think you can go, oh, I live in XYZ, I don't have to be bothered, but it's not true.
I
We're
agree.
everywhere.
So I could talk to y'all all day, and I don't think I'll be able to cover all the topics that I have. So let me start wrapping up with some quick fire questions. Um, oh, before I get to the fun questions, well, it's still a fun question. One quick question about your podcast. Why did you go with the name Black Women in Europe?
because I'm not creative. No, because what unimaginative.
Oh
No,
no.
because okay, I started the Black Women Europe blog 16 years ago. Now it is when I moved from Belgium to Sweden. I thought, can I get any further away from my people, right? And it was, out of selfishness. It forced me to research what's going on in Black. Because if you've been to Brussels, you can be very Black in Brussels. You can be a little Montongue, which is like a
Hmm.
little part of the Congo.
Yeah.
You could, so then I get to Sweden. I wasn't in a big city. I was in a small city, and it's like, okay, let's see what's going on. And so I found out, that we've got Black women that are in the European court of, all levels, presenters, beauty queens, athletes, Olympians. We're doing the same thing that we're doing in the States, different levels, different ways. But again, remember, this is the girl from Chocolate City. I was used to seeing Black people do their thing, and especially women.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then the community built out of it. And 15 years later, um, Angela had an opportunity. Because I met Angela uh, through Democrats Abroad when I was the global caucus coordinator when she stepped up to launch the Global Black Caucus, and I knew right away I wanted to work with her, but I knew she was going to be too busy what she was doing. So when she was relieved of that position, I immediately said, "Okay, please come work with me. Let's do a podcast." And I had lost my father that year, and Angela was going through the archives and files, and she said, you're going to be 15. It's going to be 15 this year, Black women in Europe. And I was like, what? That had completely gotten past me. So then our focus was like, okay, we're celebrating 15 years with this podcast. If we just do one season, whatever, we're doing it. We've got so many people to talk to. A blog is static. Let's bring these voices to life. And so it was just naturally going to flow out of that. It was a trademark brand that I had done. It was a community, people knew it. But it wouldn't have come to life without Angela. So, because I wouldn't have had I wouldn't have done it on my own. I knew I had Angela launched the Global Black Caucus Power to the People podcast. And I had been a guest on it, and she let me co-host it when we were getting into that election season. Woo, we were going for it hard, helping people register to vote and everything. So I knew she knew what she was doing when it came to podcasts. So that name was, then it was like, we're two Black women in Europe, and we just want to talk to other people that get us, maybe don't get us, don't get a chance to speak, that we have girl crushes on, that I have girl crushes on. I have a long list of people, brothers like you, because we have, what do we call, friends of the pod? We're gonna invite you to be a guest friend of the pod.
Thank you.
So that was the name. So the name was never really imaginative, but it was supposed to be to the point. This is where you're gonna be Black. But the hardest thing about having that name is letting the brothers or the men know that this is not a dating site. Everybody, there's so many that want to join the groups. You heard of people trying to date on LinkedIn. They try to join that. They try to join even on the Black. So that's been. I don't know if it's been good or bad, but it pretty much tells it like it is.
It's been good for me though. It's been good because I love listening to the stories, and I learned. I was listening to the Afro Fiends episode coming to the studio today to refresh myself, and I was like, wow, I actually missed where one of the women mentioned that the school in Helsinki was looking for an Igbo teacher. And I was like, I know a lot of Igbo people, and I was actually on a Nigerian forum where there were people arguing that, languages, there's no opportunities for languages outside of Nigeria. And I was like, y'all don't.
Oh, wow. I'm so glad you said that, because I know that would probably be true also in Sweden and maybe all in Scandinavia, because they want, if there's enough mass, I don't know how many kids they need. You have the right to have part of your education in your mother tongue,
Wow.
So if there are enough Igbo speaking children in a community, I know an African American. Well, she's not African American. She's Haitian American. I know her family moved from Haiti to the States, and so she's mother tongue French and English, and she makes her living in Sweden, teaching English and French to the kids whose parents, that's their native tongue. So I am so glad that you picked up on that, that the Igbo can be taught outside of. Where do you speak Igbo? I don't want to just say it's in Nigeria. Is it another?
To the best of my knowledge, it's Nigeria. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an Igbo, if there's indigenous Igbo in parts of Cameroon, because southern, so I think southwestern part of Cameroon used to be part of Nigeria before 1960. That's when they were given the option of either stay in Nigeria or join Cameroon. And that's part of the fighting that's going on today in Cameroon. Yeah, with the French.
And does that tie back to the British somehow? I always feel like it's
always,
tied back to
always. Everything ties back. Everything ties back to the British.
Yeah.
Everything ties back. Yeah. So, thank you for that. So I have to start wrapping up for real before Josh kicks me out of here. So,
Okay.
so quick questions. Favorite city in the world? Both of you?
New York. No, just I think London is a cool city. I don't know if it's my favorite, but if I'm gonna stick in Europe, London.
Okay.
I would say Miami.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Wow, Miami. Wow, okay, Florida got something right. Okay. Okay, so you've been to a lot of places, traveled around. When it comes to cuisine, what's your favorite?
Indian, some food I had at this little place on the road from Delhi to Assam to the northern region that looked like I didn't want to get out of the car because I was like, no way I'm eating there. The best, simple.
Those are usually
I
the
think it
best
was,
places.
yeah, that was my best. Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna say seafood in general. So whatever
Oh,
country, if there's an ocean close by,
okay.
I'm sure the food's gonna be awesome.
Oh, alrighty. Uh, Angela's choice is always surprising me.
Angela, you know what? Should we tell them about our McDonald's in Tokyo?
Oh my God, yes,
Oh,
that's right.
I've heard
We were
stories of
in
McDonald's
we
there.
were in Tokyo and for a conference, and we went to McDonald's, and they had a lobster burger, and it was
Lobster
great.
burger. Wow. Yeah.
It was awesome. I
Yeah.
wish they would
I
sell
definitely
that
will try
somewhere
that.
else.
Yeah. I've heard McDonald's in Tokyo is yeah, that's a whole different universe on its own.
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone who appears on this podcast is considered a dancer. If you claim you don't dance, you don't, we stop recording and kick you off the show right now. So you have to admit that you're a dancer, and then we move on. So we need you to dance for at least an hour, and for you to dance for an hour, we need you to give us 3 artists that will keep you dancing for an hour. Now, you can't give us the most popular names. People like to give us Michael Jackson, the Beyonce, Jay-Z's. No, you can't give us those names. You can't give us, give us names from your travels. You can give us names from names that not everybody will, will not be popular to everybody. So we'd love to discover artists too. So yeah, who goes first?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad this is audio only because I'm looking at Angela's face, and if my camera was on, my face would be just like that. Because when you were like, no, Michael Jackson, I was like, Prince. I'm thinking Prince, 80s party,
Yeah. I have to make it difficult for people because yeah, in the beginning everybody was just going with the most popular names. I was like, no, 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 no. We have to make it difficult now. So bring it
Well,
down.
you know what? I don't know. And see, this is going to be
You can
popular.
bring an old artist, but not you can still go old school, but you can give us some names, and you can give us somebody from Sweden has a lot of great music that's come out from there too. So
That's true, and I am old school. But you know what? And this I don't know if you heard of Daniel Lima, but
hmm,
it's me and my Swedes song. It's called Love Light, and he's a Swedish dread, or I don't know why he was popular in Sweden, but it's this it's like a romantic dance. So if I'm dancing for an hour, I'm gonna get a dance in there with my Swede, right? So that he's a good dancer, like that ballroom type dancing kind of, not like okay, but anyway, so something that he can hold me and we can dance to. So Daniel Lima, Love Light, that's like my
okay.
theme song. That would be good. And then I'm gonna be quiet while Angela interjects and I think of my other two songs.
Okay. All right. So I kind of like techno and house type
Well,
music,
those are
but
cool.
I like a lot of different types of music. So I'm going to say if I wanted to dance for a long time, I would listen to Usher. That would be the first person.
Should we take Usher?
Not everybody's gonna have an underground. Not everybody's gonna have an underground artist. So.
All right,
Well,
all
yeah.
right, all right,
Well, if
all
you
right.
really want to
Josh
party, you
approves.
got to go to an underground rave. So
Okay, all right. We'll,
sorry.
we'll take Usher.
Um,
We'll take Usher.
okay.
Well,
So
Usher he's currently with the Watch This right now. It's all over Twitter. So, and I like
oh,
seeing that too.
okay.
Is something going on with Usher? I don't know, but
Oh,
do you know?
he just
Oh,
performed at that was over a month ago at Tiny Desk for NPR, and people, I guess, a whole bunch of young people realized that Usher can sing, and when he did
uh-huh.
his Watch This, and they're like, oh, so now it's become a meme, and you use it for everything. So it's like, oh, someone says, I'm gonna be there at 5. You don't believe me? Watch this. So yeah,
Okay, thank you. See, now you're making me current. I'm going to use this. You're making
yeah,
me current.
it
I'm
works
gonna
for
use this.
everything. Anybody doubts you on anything, just tell them, watch this. Yeah.
Watch
Yeah,
this.
he actually
Well,
responded to it. He there's a Dominican
Oh
usher that
my
has come out from
God.
that performance, and yeah, it's one of the best things to happen on the internet recently.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if I can break the internet with throwing go-go music out there.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
yeah, you're decent.
definitely. Okay, you feel me with the go-go. I don't know if Angela knows go-go music, but there was, if you go back to a Spike Lee movie,
Hmm.
it's from DC. Everybody knows it in DC, but it kind of went mainstream. Spike Lee movie. Which one was it? But the Doing the Butt was
Oh yeah, that was
that's go-go
School
beat.
Days or
School
something.
Days. Okay. And then also Salt and Pepper did like Shake Your Thing. They have like a go-go beat or whatever, and they talk about go-go. But go-go is good. I think go-go is good for young and old because you can have, and you see if you go to a DC go-go party, you see grandmothers up there dancing with their grandkids because you can do it at your own little beat. And black people, we can dance and be cool
Yep.
with it. So go-go, I think it's intergenerational. I could dance to that for an hour.
Yeah, but we need an artist, a go-go
Oh, if
artist.
you want an artist, I would
Yeah.
say EU Experience Unlimited. Um, Chuck Brown, he Godfather of Soul, rest in peace. He's jamming up there with James Brown and all the other greats. He's and one thing I love about going to a baseball game, I haven't been lately in Washington D.C. though. When we hit a home run, they'll play some go-go music. I forget what it is, so a little bit of DC, but definitely Chuck Brown and Experience Unlimited are two. If you can find them, you'll find libraries of other local artists.
Alrighty. Awesome. Do you have any more to add, Angela?
I do. I like Rihanna a lot.
Oh, that's cheating. That's cheating. We
It's
can.
cheating? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. All right. Fine.
Yeah,
Then
that's.
I won't say Rihanna then, but
I mean, she's
she's
welcome on the podcast too, but that's
she's the
oh
best.
yeah.
I okay, all right. I had to look through like my Spotify. So I'm gonna say if I had to pick a song that an artist that could keep you dancing, I'm gonna go back. Like I'm gonna go back old school. I would say Sly and the Family Stone.
Hey, I haven't heard that name in a while. All right.
Yeah,
Awesome. Okay. Fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got
Do
one
you
more,
ever watch
Adrian.
Eurovision? Is it called Eurovision?
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
Eurovision.
Eurovision. I haven't watched it, but it's getting big around my friends. Yeah.
Because I think it's getting popular or they're trying to push it in the States. And
It's
I'm like,
getting
why?
popular here. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there's always somebody quirky there. But I just wanted to mention because I guess everybody figured Ukraine's going to win because of the war. But their act was a combination. It was basically okay. Black people won Eurovision this year, and the reason I say that is because it was a combination of Ukrainian folk music and hip hop. I mean, somebody was breakdancing, somebody was
Mm.
rapping. They would be there with their traditional clothes, playing folk music, and then the break would come and it's rap, and I was like, okay, we know people love hip hop. It was a good song though. So I just say that every year I've watched, I've seen Eurovision get more and more black artists or whatever. But this was the first time I've seen black culture
Oh.
win. Yeah, black culture won Eurovision this year.
Yeah,
I just felt like I had to say that.
that's I'm trying to remember his name. Terrell Star James? No, not James. Jermaine or something. I have to remember his last name. I think Star is his middle name. He's black. He's a black gentleman. He's a journalist who moved to Ukraine to learn Ukrainian before the war broke out, the invasion by Russia, and yeah, he has some great history of Ukraine that he's been giving on Twitter. And when he was back in the States not long ago, he even testified at Congress. And yeah, that guy, he's like a fountain of information. I'll send you his information.
Where
Uh,
is he now?
I think he's back in Ukraine. Yeah,
Wow, because we did hear people are going back, aren't they?
Yeah.
yeah. I think he's back. He's been reporting on Twitter. He's been one of the people who like expose how the Russian um what do you call it, the propaganda machine online works. And when you start following, you start seeing how he breaks it down. You start seeing how, oh, there's a whole lot of yeah, there was a lot of thought put into the online attack first, and then the physical attack. So it was like separate wars that was going on. And Yeah, so even when he started showing Black history in Ukraine, it was like, wow. People were like, "What? Black people? What? There's Black history? What? What?" People were exploding. It was like heads were exploding in the comment section. So yeah, he's also a fantastic resource. I hope I can get him one day to be on the show too, because now sometimes he even dresses in traditional Ukrainian outfits too. Yeah. So
Fascinating.
yeah. So thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for being on the show. As my people say, umbana. That's how I thank you. And as my wife says, dankeschön. So I still remember that German. And so before we officially wrap up, final question: what would you like to leave the audience with? It's your freestyle moment. So if you want to leave a go-go track, hey, that's up to you. But it's your freestyle moment. Up to you guys.
Okay, I'm going to go first. What I would like to leave the audience with is one, that climate change is real and that we can do something about it. There's nothing stopping us. We have all the technology that we need to actually solve the problem, but what we don't have is the will. Um, Two, that humanity is infinitely creative, and that if we all work together, we could accomplish great things, and that dividing ourselves up by arbitrary groups of nationality or race or sex or whatever is counterproductive, and that if we want to make our planet as a whole a great place for everyone with opportunities for everyone, then we have to all work together and try to think of each person as an individual, but a part of a whole. Like we are one whole human family. And yeah, the last thing, like I know it was supposed to be a three-part answer, but okay, is that we can't let the fascists win.
Mm-mm.
We need to do everything we can to stop them, because we are at the threshold of really great things, and they will destroy the earth with their nonsense and keep us from achieving that future that a lot of people think we should have. So stand strong against fascism, protect the earth, and stand together with every person on earth, and let's make it a better place.
Awesome. Adrian?
Okay, I thought this was going to be light and fluffy. Like, here's my link tree. Follow me on
Oh,
YouTube.
you
That
get that
was
after this. Okay.
I'm not like that. So
no, no, but that was great, and of course,
Uh,
everything that Angela said. So I'm just going to couple with if you follow Angela's call to action to protect the earth, repel the fascists, and what was the third thing?
Climate
Be
change.
good to
work for,
Oh yeah. No, humanity.
yeah,
But it was
humanity.
basically like for the best of humanity.
Yes.
If that's your call and that's your charge, I'm going to offer you the other side of that coin. You have to take care of yourself, right?
Mm.
Angela and I personally know what it's like to neglect our families, neglect our well-being, at least for me. But stress kills, all those things. So on the other side of that coin, while you're the activist, this is what they don't show you in the Marvel. Do they show you, Angela, like them getting massages and all that stuff, pedicures, or just eating
No.
good food? Eating good food. We have to take care of ourselves
Yeah.
because they are coming for us. The fascists are coming for us. They're killing our planet. Like, all these things are true. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to take care of ourselves. So we have to learn how to say no to things that don't serve you, that suck your time, that just don't feel good, that make you feel bad. I've said no to a lot of things, and it's given me a lot more time to do things that matter. And don't feel bad about saying no. People are going to be upset when you say no. They're going to look like you grew a second head because you used to always say yes. The first time you say no, they're going to be like, what? And they're going to make you try to feel bad.
True.
That's how you know you're right. That's how you know you're right. So take care of yourself, learn when to say no, and just be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, And then I think you can forgive others. 9 times out of 10, people are doing the best they can. When you find that 10th person who's not run, stay far away from them. Don't let them in your space.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you again. And please let the audience know where they can find you.
You
Okay,
can find
now.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is what you wanted. So you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Fobbsie, Fobbsie.
Alrighty.
And Adrianne.
Yeah. So the podcast is at BWIE today, one word. Twitter is at BWIE. You know, the YouTube channel, I don't know, but if you go on YouTube and search for Black Women in Europe Power List,
Actually,
our
give the
channel is
link
going to
tree.
come up.
Give
Yeah,
the link.
link
tree.
Yeah, but I want to say it all
Well,
out too to let them know.
I'll
And
have
Kiva,
all the links, including the link
yeah,
tree in the show
link
notes.
tree,
Don't worry.
link tree. But
Yeah.
you know, Kiva, you know, we're trying to be everywhere where we can make a difference. So thank you so much for letting us come here and talk to you,
Hey.
to meet you, friend of the pod,
Pleasure's all
and
mine.
to meet your
I'm honored.
audience.
I'm so glad that you guys joined us, and yeah, it's we've learned a lot, and I can't. Hopefully, I'm always in Germany at least once a year, and maybe one day I'll make it down to. I'm always in the northwestern part, but we're talking now that my daughter is getting older. Yeah, she can stay with Oma and Opa, and yeah, we can go to other parts of Germany instead of always hanging around Münster drinking Glühwein. So yeah. So, Dankeschön again. And I think Swedish is tak tak, right? Tak tak.
It is, and I was just gonna say nobody ever comes to
Thanks
Sweden,
for
but it is.
listening to White Label America.
I was
If
supposed
you
to come
enjoyed the
to Sweden
show,
a while back,
we'll
but, long
appreciate
story there.
if you
But
rate,
anyway, we'll wrap up
review,
here. And
and
don't forget,
subscribe to the
listeners,
podcast,
send
wherever
your
you
feedback,
get your
support,
podcast from.
donate, and check out
If you have
Black
any
Women in
questions,
Europe
comments,
podcast.
or have
Season 2 is
someone
coming
who
up
will
soon.
be
So
a good guest on the
yes,
show,
support,
or you
support.
want
And,
to be on the show,
don't forget
send
to
us
join
a
us next week
message
for
at
another episode. Keep the
whitelabelamerican
love coming in.
at
Stay
gmail.com.
awesome.
And make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at White Label American. Thank you for your support.